you want it. You got to know the purpose. In our OPA training system, when people are managing their lives, we have them ask, what's my outcome? And then why do I want this? Because any person successful, really successful, knows exactly what they want and they know why. The reason you got to know why is, remember I said yesterday, reasons come first, answers come second. If you get enough reasons, you can get a big enough why, you can figure out how to do about anything. But you got to have purpose, because purpose provides drive. Now, if you know what you want and you know why, you're light years ahead of most of the population, but you got to go to the step that most people seem to avoid, and that is you got to take massive what? That's right, and the key word there is massive. Massive action can be a cure-all when you know what you're after and you know why you want it. Because when you know what you're after, when you take action, you won't just be expending energy. You'll be moving yourself in a direction towards something you really, really want. And what stops people from taking action? Primarily what? Fear. And the way you get over that fear is, what do you think is the number one fear most people have? Failure. And the reason is they feel if they fail, they won't be loved. They'll be rejected. They'll be hurt. They'll be judged. So what they really are afraid of is losing love. And they think that this rejection, or I should say this failure, will lead to that rejection or loss of love. The truth of the matter is, you can't fail unless you don't try. If you try something that doesn't work, you just learn from it, and that'll make you better the next time you go about it. Now, if you know your outcome, know why you want it, and take massive action, you're now in the most small percentile of people on the planet. So what's the next step, though? Well, you can take a lot of action and get caught up in a pattern. Like, become so determined that you became like tunnel vision, like, I know this is going to work. And so you keep running east looking for a sunset with total certainty and a lot of belief, high standards, still doesn't work. So what you have to be able to do to succeed so you don't get caught up in some old pattern is you got to know what you're getting. Know what you are, know what you're getting. The word we use for this, as for short, is we call it sensory acuity. Sensory acuity is the idea that you want to become acutely sensitive to whether what you're doing is working or not. You don't want to just say, okay, I know what I want, I know why I want it, I'm just going to make it happen, this is how I'm going to do it. You keep hammering it, hammering it, hammering it, doing something that doesn't work. And people do this all the time, right? Do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's called insanity. You can't do the same thing again and again, expect a different result when you can see it doesn't get the result. But we get caught up in our patterns. So we want to get really sensitized, acutely sensitized, sensory acuity, to whether what we're doing is working or not. And by the way, sensory acuity is really the measure of a person's intelligence. What I mean by that is, how do we measure intelligence? Intelligence is a measure of the number and quality of distinctions you have in a given situation. Like, for example, if you talk to Eskimos, that's actually not the politically correct term anymore, I guess it's Inouye. If you talk to an Inouye, what we formerly called Eskimos, you'd find out that Inouye have more than a dozen words for the word snow. More than a dozen. Now, I'm from Southern California. Guess how many words I have for snow? One. I don't see any of it. It's called snow, baby. Right? But they got to know what kind of snow. They got to make more refined distinctions to be effective in the world, to get their outcomes. They got to know what kind of snow you can build an igloo out of, what kind of snow you can take your dogs through, what kind of snow you can eat, right? What kind of snow you're going to fall through. So who has more intelligence, who has more power in that snowy environment? The Eskimo or me? Which one? Eskimo, because they have more sensory acuity. They have more refined distinctions about what each of these elements mean versus I just see it as snow. Now, if you took that Eskimo and you stuck him in my car in Los Angeles, then we'd find out that maybe I have a little more intelligence, because he might try to steer the thing using the rearview mirror, right? He just doesn't know. So since he doesn't have that acuity, he doesn't have those distinctions, he wouldn't do terribly well there. See, some people, I could hold this up and I could say, what is this? And they'd say, well, it's a cylinder. Other people say, no, that's a blue, white, and black cylinder. Someone else says, no, that's a blue color marker. A few people say, no, that's not just a blue color marker. That is a Pilot super color, bride and wad color marker, and if you get it in your clothes, it'll never come out. Now, which one of those people has more power? 1, 2, 3, or 4? 4, because they have the largest number of distinctions. The thing that can affect your life the most in terms of your ability to achieve your outcomes, the greatest resource on earth, is other human beings. Example, have you ever had somebody mistake your being polite for your actually being interested in what they were talking about? Or worse, how many of you have ever thought somebody was interested in what you're saying, found out later they were just being polite? How many of you have been in that place? Say aye. That's kind of an uncomfortable situation. When that happened to you, you were missing your sensory acuity that day. So now, if you know your outcome, you know why you want it. You got your purpose. You got your drive. You got your A, an OPA. This is outcome, purpose, action. You know the massive action. You're taking action, and you notice if it's working. What happens if you notice it's not working? You're taking action, but it's not getting you closer to your outcome. What's the obvious fifth step? The fifth step is change your approach. Change your approach. If what you're doing, your acuity says is not working, change it. Now, what if you change your approach and that's still not working? Then what would you do? What would you do? Come on, what would you do? What if that doesn't work? What do you do? And what if that doesn't work? What do you do? What if that doesn't work? What do you do? What if after all that it still doesn't work? What do you do? And what if you try that and it doesn't work? How many times? Until you find out what works. Do not say to yourself, I've tried everything. That's bull. If you tried everything, you'd have what you want. Well, I haven't tried everything, but I've tried millions of things. Millions? Number them, name them. Well, maybe tens of thousands. Tens of thousands? Name 1,000. Well, maybe 100. Name 100. Well, maybe I did these two things over and over again that don't work. Okay? But when we start saying, I've tried everything, we tend to incant that, don't we? We make it an incantation, and then we believe it. And since we think we've tried everything, we just give up. It's garbage, not true. Hey, let me ask you a question. How long would you give your average baby to learn how to walk? You know, before you shut them off and didn't let them try anymore. You go, what are you, crazy? My kid's going to keep trying until he or she walks. Ah, magic formula. And when almost everybody in the whole world walks, right? But see, when you're a kid, that's what you do. You do whatever it takes. When you get to be an adult, you try something that doesn't work. You go, did anybody notice that? Okay, I'm never doing that again. And you lose all your power, okay? So this is the ultimate success formula. It comes down to knowing what you want, why you want it, taking massive action, know if it's working, and simply changing your approach until you get it. That's it. Anyone who succeeds does this. They may not call it Robbins' ultimate success formula, but I guarantee they did it. I mean, corny example, Thomas Edison, these lights in here. Did this guy know his outcome, yes or no? He was absolutely clear. Without knowing the outcome, he couldn't have built that in a million years. It didn't exist before. He had to decide he wanted to create this result without the use of candles. Did he know why he wanted to do it? You bet. You read his writings, this man had a sense of incredible purpose and drive. Did he take massive action, yes or no? Oh, yes. Tens of thousands of experiments. Did he notice when it wasn't working and learn from it, yes or no? And did he keep changing his approach? That's why right now in this room we don't smell candlelight, right? Now, if you know the old story of him, it's written about him in his early days. He says he's got his best friend with him. He's doing this experiment, and as he's doing it, he creates a small explosion, which shakes the room, scares both of them very, very severely. And then at the end of that, he gets up, and his friend is totally shaken, freaked out. He pulls out his journal, and he starts writing. And it's his 9,999th experiment. And his buddy says to him, what's the matter with you, insane? You almost killed us. So you're going to wait till you have 10,000 failures before you give this stupid idea up? And Edison's response to him was, I didn't have a failure there. He goes, that's your 9,999th failure. He said, no, it's not. He said, I discovered the 9,999th way not to invent the electric light bulb. But I did discover how to create a small explosion, which may be useful in the future somewhere else. Interesting, right? Because he understood what this process was. Hey, did Bruce Springsteen use this? Do you think he just went out and used his gravelly voice and said, hey, baby, born to USA, and everybody went, yeah, you're it, man. You're the boss. You're it. Is that what happened? No. What really happened, if you know his story, was that all the agents and people who went to try and book with said, just play the guitar and keep your mouth shut. Your voice is gross sounding. It's gravelly. It's irritating. No one is going to like the stuff. Keep your mouth shut and play the guitar. But he knew what he wanted. He had all the drive you can imagine, knew why he wanted, took massive action, kept changing his approach until he got what he wanted. How about Sly Stallone, Sylvester Stallone, Rocky? Rocky's story is this even, right? But Sly's is too. Sly's a good friend of mine. And when I first met him years ago, he's listening to my tapes and stuff, and he invited me over for dinner. We started talking, and I said, you know, I've heard your story from other people, but I really love to hear it from the horse's mouth. I don't know how much is mythology, you know, urban myth, and how much is true. So he told me his whole story. He said the essence of it, though, was he said he knew his whole life what he wanted to do since he was very, very young. He wanted to be in the movie business, period. I mean, not just TV, movies. And he said why was, for him, it was a chance to have people not only escape, but to inspire people. And by the way, that drive is what made most of his movies, inspire people to what they're capable of, to overcome unbelievable obstacles, because in his own life, he felt like he did that. When he was born, he was pulled out by the forceps. That's why he looked the way he did. That's why he talked the way he did. And he said, so I really want to do that. And he said, I knew why I wanted to do it, and I wasn't willing to settle for anything else. And he said, what happened was I went out to try and get jobs, and it's not like I went, hey, Adrian. They went, you're a star. It didn't work out real well. They looked at me and said, hey, you're stupid looking. Do something else. You know, what is it talking like this? There's no place for you in that stuff. You're never going to be a star in the movies. You're insane. No one's going to want to listen to somebody who looks dopey and talks out of the side of their mouth, right? And he got no after no after no after no. He said, I was thrown out more than 1,500 times of agents' offices in New York. I said, there aren't 1,500 agents in New York. He said, I know. I've been to them 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. He said, remember one guy went in there, and I got in there at 4 o'clock, and he wouldn't see me, so I stayed there, and I would not leave, and I stayed overnight. They came back the next morning, I was still sitting there. He said, that's how I got my first job. The guy said, fine, come in here. And he sat down, and he went through this, and he gave me my first movie. I said, oh, really? I thought Rocky was your first movie. He said, no, this other movie, I'd never heard of it. He said, I said, well, what character did you play? He said, well, I was in it for about 20 seconds. I was a thug that somebody beat up. He said, because they made me feel like, you know, people hate your guts. You getting beat up will be a good thing. And he did like 3 movies like that. Never got anything, kept going out, rejection, rejection, rejection. So finally he realized it wasn't working. So he changed his approach. He said, I was starving, by the way. He said, I couldn't pay for even to have heat in my apartment. My wife was screaming at me every day to go get a job. I said, well, why didn't you? He said, because I knew that if I got a job, he said, I'd get seduced back and I'd lose my hunger. He said, I knew that the only way I could do this is if it was the only choice, if I burned all other bridges. Because if I did a normal job, pretty soon I'd be caught up in that rhythm and that stuff, and I'd feel okay about my life, and I feel like my dream would just gradually disappear. And he said, I wanted to keep that hunger. That hunger was the only thing I thought was my advantage. He said, my wife didn't understand that at all. He said, we'd have these vicious fights, and he said, it was freezing. So I was broke, we had no money, and he said, so I finally went to the public library one day because it was warm. So I didn't want to read anything. So I went in, New York Public Library. He said, I was hanging out there, and I sat down in this chair, and somebody left a book there. And he said, I looked down at this book, and there were the poems of Edgar Allan, stories of Edgar Allan Poe. And he said, so I started reading it, and he said, I got totally into Edgar Allan Poe. And he said, I know everything about it. He goes on for another 20 minutes telling me about Edgar Allan Poe. He knows everything, how he died, what it was about, what really happened. And I said, well, what did Poe do for you? He said, Poe got me out of myself. He got me to think about how I could touch other people and not worry about myself so much. And he said, it made me decide to become a writer. I said, just imagine Rocky the writer, right? And he said, so I tried to write a bunch of screenplays, nothing worked. I was totally broke. He said, I didn't even have $50. And he said, and finally, he said, I sold a script. And it was called Paradise Alley. He said, it's a movie I made many years later, but I sold it. And he said, I sold it for $100. He said, but $100 was a ton of money, man. I was so thrilled. I thought, I'm on my way. But it never led to anything. And he said, so finally, he said, I kept going and going and going. He said, finally, we were so broke. He said, I hawked my wife's jewelry. He said, Tony, there's some things in life you should never do. He said, that was basically the end of our relationship. She hated my guts so much. He said, now we were so broke, we had nothing, no food, no money. And he said, the one thing I loved most in the world was my dog. He said, I love my dog because he gave me unconditional love, unlike my wife. And he said, so what happened was, though, we were so broke that to survive, I couldn't even feed my dog. So I went to a liquor store. He said, it was the lowest day of my life. And I stood outside the liquor store trying to sell my dog to strangers. He said, I tried to sell my dog for $50. And he said that finally this one guy negotiated with me and bought my dog for me, my best friend on earth, for $25. He said, I walked away from there and I cried. He said, it was the worst thing that ever happened in my life. He said, 2 weeks later, I'm watching a fight between Muhammad Ali and Wepner, this white guy that's getting bludgeoned but just keeps on coming. And he said, I got an idea. He said, as soon as the fight ended, I started writing. He said, I wrote for 20 straight hours. I did not sleep. I wrote the entire movie in 20 hours straight. Right then. Saw the fight, wrote the movie. Whole thing, done. He said, I was shaking at the end. I was so excited. He said, I really knew, man. I knew what I wanted. I knew why I wanted it. He said, just like you teach that formula. He said, but I said, man, I took the action. Now it's time to deliver. And so he said, I went out and started trying to sell it to agents. And they all would read it and they'd say, you know, this is predictable. This is stupid. This is sappy. He said, I wrote down all the things they said, and I read them the night of the Oscars when we won. Right? He said, it was really good, right? The greatest revenge is massive success. And he said, so what happened was, he said, I kept going, trying to sell it, nobody got it, I'm broke, I'm starving. He said, finally, I meet these guys, they read it and they believe in the script and they love it. And they offer me $125,000 for my script. I said, oh my God, you must have been out of your mind. He said, I was. I said, just one thing though, guys, you got a deal based on one thing. And they said, what's that? He said, I got a star in it. They went, pfft. What are you talking about? You're a writer. He said, no, I'm an actor. I said, no, you're a writer. He said, no, I'm an actor. That is my story and I'm Rocky. He said, I got to play it. I got to be the head person. I got to be the starring role. And they said, there's no way. We're not going to pay you $125,000, take some no name and stick you in that and throw our money away. We need a star. And they want to have Ryan O'Neal play Rocky, to give you a picture. Can you imagine? That's who they'd picked, right? And so he said, no way, Ryan O'Neal isn't Rocky, I'm Rocky. Went through this whole thing, right? They said, well, take it or leave it. He said, I left the room. I said, if that's what you believe, you don't get my script, and he left. Here's a man with no money, none, totally broke, offered $125,000 more money he'd seen in his lifetime, and he walked away because he knew his real what? Knew his real what? And why he wanted it, he was committed to it. So he said they called him a few weeks later and they came and brought him back and they offered him $250,000 not to star in his own movie. He turned it down, $250,000. They came back, their final offer was $325,000. They wanted this thing. He said, not without me, and they said no. They finally compromised and they gave him $35,000. And points in the movie, because they said, if this is going to happen, then you're going to take the risk with us. And the bottom line is, we don't think it'll work, but at least we won't spend a bunch of money on you. And then they only spent $1 million to make Rocky, and it grossed $200 million at the time. Right? It was done pretty well. But what's interesting about this is, I said, what'd you do? even $35,000, it's not $250,000. That's a lot of money when you don't have $25. I said, what's the first thing you did? I figured you went out and partied or something. He said, I went to that liquor store for 3 straight days and hoped that the man who had my dog frequented the store. He said, because I want to buy back my dog. I thought that was so cool, right? That was really cool. I said, what happened? He said, third day I was there, this guy walks by and I see him and I can't believe it, and there's my dog. And I looked at him and I said, sir, remember me? And he said, it had been about a month and a half by the time this had all come about. And he said, remember me? I'm the guy that sold you the dog. I goes, yeah, I love the dog. He said, well, look. He said, I was so broke. I was starving. He's my best friend. I'm sure you love him too, but I got to have him black. Please, I beg of you. He said, I'll pay you $100 for the dog. I know you paid me $25, but I'll give you $100. And the man said, absolutely not. No way. He's my dog now. You can't buy him back, right? And Sly said, Tony, how you say know your outcome? I said, yeah. He said, I knew it. And he said, I kept changing my approach. So I went, $500 for the dog. The guy said, absolutely no way. He said, $1,000 for my dog. The guy said, no amount of money on earth is ever going to get this dog from you. I said, what'd you do? He said, I knew my outcome, right? Because he listened to these tapes, kept to him. He said, I decided to take massive action. He said, I got my dog. I just kept changing my approach, so I got it. I said, what'd it cost you? $15,000 and a part in Rocky. The guy's in Rocky. You know that dog in Rocky, Butt Kiss? That's Sly's real dog, right? That's the dog. You bought him back. So he put his dog in the movie, and he put the guy in the movie and paid $15,000 while he had $35,000. Isn't that pretty cool? Pretty awesome. So there's always a way if you're committed. Just got to keep changing your approach. Now, let me offer you, there's going to be so many things we're going to cover and we're going to do that in order for you to be able to really retain it, your brain needs kind of some triggers that will remind you of the basic content of this. So you might want to write these 4 words down. The first word is the word perception. Perception. This is a core principle of life, and that principle is simple. Whatever you perceive is going to be true for you. Whatever you perceive is going to be true for you, so you better control your perceptions. Don't let your perceptions be controlled by others. And we're going to learn lots of ways to change our perceptions and therefore immediately change the way we feel, the way we behave, the way we think. If somebody perceives that the witch doctor has pointed at them and put a hex on them and they're going to die of a heart attack, when a person believes that with certainty, they give an unquestioned command to their body and their heart stops. Happens in all the cultures of the world. That's the power of perception. Perception can make you feel euphoric or it can make you feel depressed about the same thing. It just has to do with how you structure perception. Most of us are running around allowing our perceptions to be shaped by others or shaped by old scripts old dialogues, old belief structures that we never really consciously designed, and we're paying the price for them. So one of the things we're going to do is show you a variety of ways of changing perception. Another key word for your file cabinet is going to be the word physiology. And when you change your physiology, it changes your perception. So this is huge leverage. It is the great gift your Creator has given you. Most of us have not consciously used our physiology effectively. We want to do that. And you might want to notice right now, because you have a lot of old habits. Old habits are you sit in a chair with a notebook and you go into a deep trance. Now, one important way to keep your physiology up, besides breathing and being up, is to yell back the answers to what we're talking about, because that'll keep you in what we call uptime. Uptime is where your mind is fully active. It's easy to be passive, but if you have to communicate out loud, that's why I ask you to do that, it'll keep you up there. So you want to do that, yes or no? Yes. Outstanding. Third key word is the word rapport. Rapport. Rapport offers you a really simple distinction, and that is anything you want to achieve in your life, anything you want to learn, any skill you want to master, anything you want to see or do or experience or have. There's somebody else out there in the world who can help you do it more rapidly, more effectively, if they wanted to help you, that is. But no one's going to want to help you unless you first help them to get what they really want. You're never going to know what they really want unless you first develop a relationship of rapport, a relationship of total responsiveness with that person. So we're going to show you a variety of ways to get rapport, all the way down to sitting next to a stranger and, again, feeling what they're feeling without them even talking. And then lastly is the word strategy. Strategy. And a strategy is a consistent way to get a result. Once you know the strategy for something, you get the result again and again and again and again. It's no longer a question, can you get the result? You can do it at will, as often as you want. And there are all kinds of strategies. Most of our strategies are unconscious in nature. For example, if you've ever been feeling really creative and things are flowing through you, if that's happened more than once in your life, you have a strategy for being creative. Here's the problem. You don't know what it is. So hopefully the environment triggers you to feel that creativity. But once you know what the strategy is, you can get yourself creative on call in a millisecond for the rest of your life. In life, you're not competing with everybody. It's so much easier than that. So few people even know that have not even decided that they're going to win the game. And if you don't have enough reasons to follow through on it, nothing else is going to help you. And so this is a good metaphor, because games are a reflection of life. The way you play a game very often is how you play life. Not absolutely, but very often what most of you do is you get in the game and you don't decide on what the outcome is and you start playing. Or you get in the game, you know the outcome, but you don't decide to win. Well, it's not that important. Maybe life is. Maybe giving your all is what the important thing is, not whether you win or not. If you decide to win, you're going to have to give your all. Decide just to play, you don't have to. There's a strategy for most things in life. There's a way to really win in your relationships. There's a way to really win financially every time, long term. There's a way to win in any area if you know what the strategy is.
Nightingale Conant is proud to present Unleash the Power Within, an exciting live audio seminar by Tony Robbins.
Think of a change in your own life, or maybe someone you know, that was really hard for you to make. Really hard. You kept trying to change, never followed through, and finally one day, wham! You said, that's it, no more, never again, it's over.
You're about to participate in a groundbreaking audio seminar by Tony Robbins, the world's leading expert on the psychology of peak performance and human potential. Recorded live at Tony's life-transforming Unleash the Power Within weekend, you'll experience the essence of the Tony Robbins experience, a powerful, high-energy examination of your life and its grand possibilities.
At the end of your life, I don't think you're going to remember all the experiences of your life. I just don't. I think you'll remember certain moments. You can create them, or you can hope they show up every once in a while. Rarely does the quality of life just happen. It must be created and constructed with conscious thought, caring, and desire. That's what makes a great life.
Tony has spent over 20 years sharpening his life-enhancing strategies while coaching people around the world. Unleash the Power Within is the culmination of all he's learned and the tools that you need to make your life extraordinary. His dynamic powerhouse style, combined with his empathic approach to human transformation, have made Tony Robbins America's results coach. and a world-class leader of profound sensitivity and insight.
So this is the ultimate success formula. It comes down to knowing what you want, why you want it, taking massive action, know if it's working, and that's it. Anyone who succeeds does this.
Take a front row seat for Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within. You'll learn to immediately break through your self-imposed limitations, create lasting change, and condition your mind for a lifetime of constant and never-ending fulfillment.
There's so much in our lives that we can do. We could all be up at 6 a.m. with total passion for living. We could all be as fit and healthy and as strong as we can imagine. We all have the capability for that. We could all have the impact on our friends and our kids and our families that we want to have. We could also be happy every single day. We could. It's not impossible. The problem is our belief systems keep us from actually engaging the parts of us that would make that a must and not a should. Because we all got lots of shoulds, right? I should do this, I should do that, I should go on a diet, I should follow through, I should spend more time, I should make that extra call, but we don't actually do it. We just, what I call, should all over ourselves, basically. And so we want to turn those shoulds into musts, and anybody can do that. How many of you have had an experience where in a moment, something you've been working on for years, or struggled with for months, you just like nothing worked, and all of a sudden, wham, I mean, you just, something happened, you said, that is it, never again, no more, and you made the shift in a relationship, in your business, in your career, someplace in life. How many can relate to this? Say, I. This is really the beginning of a journey, and it's a journey that I can promise you will be one you won't forget, not because I'm so great, but because you got all these things inside of you. If you came here for me to be your guru, you came to the wrong place, because that's not what I'm about. I'm just a guy. I have some really good solutions to ideas because for 2 decades of my life, 21 years now, it's been my obsession. What makes people what they do, and how do you change it quickly when what they're doing is not what they want? How do you produce results? And I've been now with, about 2 million people from 65 countries, so you don't have to be too smart over 2 decades of that many patterns to start seeing there are patterns in human behavior, and they're predictable patterns. And when you know what they are, you can change things in lightning-like speed, just like your mechanic knows how to fix your car, hopefully, or your computer expert pretends that they know the answer to that. Each one of you have your focus. You have an area of your life that you know much more than I do, and you're an expert in that area. So I'm not coming to you this weekend as having all the answers, but I've got some that work just because they work globally, meaning worldwide, no matter what your background is, what your past experience is, your gender, your color, your religious beliefs. There are certain fundamental laws of the human psyche and the human physiology that when you engage them, you will get results, period. In fact, I got a question for you. How many of you in this room have ever gone to an educational experience of any sort, a seminar, university experience, anything? You learned something you really thought was valuable. I mean, you really truly knew was valuable, but then you never actually applied what it is you learned. How many have had this experience? Say I. How many have had this happen to you more than once in your lifetime? Say I. How many still feel like you're intelligent? Say I. How is it that an intelligent person like you and I could learn something more than once, know it's valuable, and then never use it? Well, the answer is because we've all been taught a big lie. The lie is that information is power. Information is not power. Information is potential power. Only one thing gives you power, and that's action. I want to tell you right now, I don't believe in positive thinking. Positive thinking says go to your garden and say, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. Okay? I got news for you, buddy. There are weeds there and they're going to take your garden. Okay? So I'm not one of those positive thinking people. I want you to be clear about that. I believe in intelligence. Intelligence says this. Number one, see it as it is, but don't see it worse than it is, which is what most people do out of fear. Most people are so afraid of being disappointed again that they say they're skeptical or they're pessimistic. When someone says they're skeptical or pessimistic, you can translate that real quickly as I'm fearful.